I see places where, like, you're walking through the airport, going through TSA, and you walk through TSA and you come out the other side, and they give you a readout of everything from your hormones to your blood pressure to your blood sugar and everything you could possibly think of. I see that technology coming, where you have an idea and almost like an exact science of where you are at that point in time. And I think that's where they want to go. And I think that I think it's reachable and achievable and attainable. I hope we get to see it in its full run.
I'm Todd Vande Hei, CEO of Stark, and I've gone from vegan to paleo to keto to carnivore, from cryosaunas to ice baths to training like an athlete to being injured like one, enhancing my mobility and optimizing my sex hormones with thousands of labs and various forms of scans. And I'm surrounded by high-level medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, chiropractors, nutritionists, and strength coaches, all leading me in concert to a state of optimal health. And I'm here to share that with you, regardless of your age, your genes, or your medical conditions, all the things I've learned and all of the mistakes that I've made. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Jeffrey Burke, a naturopathic practitioner with decades of experience in natural health. Dr. Burke holds multiple certifications, including naturopathy, master herbalist, certified nutrition consultant, and certified health specialist. He also serves as the director of education for Corcora Life, is a national educator for Irwin Naturals, and hosts the Honest Health podcast. Jeffrey, welcome to the show. So good to be here with you today. Excited to talk to you, find out what is the most interesting thing that you're focused on now, or the biggest problem that you're trying to solve for. What's going on in your life?
I think after this many years, I think the thing that is my biggest focus is getting people educated. The internet has been one of the most amazing things, but also a double-edged sword, because there's so much information out there at our fingertips. But then most of the time we have to research our research and then research our research to find out if what we're actually listening to is true to note. And I think that getting people information, I think, is important. I've been in the information business for 4.5 decades in this industry, and I think that today it's more important because of confusion, because of so much information, and because people are in more need of having information, because we're not in a really good, healthy place in this country.
Oh, we're definitely not. Yeah. What about large language models? How does that change things? How does that change consumer knowledge as having access to sort of a level up from what Google is?
As far as
Well, I mean, today, if I want to research or understand why I have a rash on my ribs, I can take a picture and upload it to ChatGPT, ask it some questions, and it will probably point me in a pretty decent direction. And that's very different than what you're talking about as far as consumer information, Googling something or doing a search for something on the web.
I think that the way I think about it is it's a great way of giving us an idea if we're headed in the right direction, if we're thinking in the same category of what we should be thinking in. And it also allows us to maybe bring ourselves to a point when we need to go to the next step, which may be scheduling a doctor's appointment or scheduling an appointment with a specific health practitioner. I think it's wonderful. I mean, I'm a big believer in telemedicine as well. That's been amazing for people that are shut-ins and people don't have the availability being able to make it to doctor's appointments. Or if you're just doing a every 3 to 6 month checkup with your doctor and you can sit down for 5 to 10 minutes and do a telemedicine. I think that's fantastic. So I think those are great things. I think those are allowing us to actually maybe pinpoint problems more effectively and maybe give us a better idea of what's going on. I think that a lot of people sometimes fear is something that keeps them from actually going into any kind of a diagnostic situation. And I think this opens the door and it's a little more soothing and maybe pulls the Band-Aid off a little bit easier.
Yeah, interestingly, I was unfortunately I've had an army of cardiologists over my adult life, and even specialists within that space, electrophysiologists. And I was with my cardiologist about 6 months ago, and we were talking about a particular medication, and he said, "This is how it works, X, Y, and Z." And he saw a look on my face of, I would say I probably looked a little suspect, which is my general predisposition with medical practitioners. I love medical practitioners. I'm not saying anything bad about them. I just recognize that they're people. And he said, go ahead and search your ChatGPT. I think it'll say the same thing. And I did, and it did. And I thought that was the first time I've ever heard anything like that. Like I'd never heard a medical practitioner say, Google that. But large language models are so much more sophisticated because of how much more precise they can be. Meaning when you do a search on Google, you can end up spending hours trying to learn something about a particular topic, wading through all the information that really isn't relevant. But a large language model can get right to the point. It's going to be interesting to see how that affects change. I mean, we have a student up in WeHo who's actually designed a dentist practice EMR system that uses AI to inform dentists. So it'll review patient charts and things of that nature. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that coming up in the immediate future. Working on the same thing with Stark, looking through reams and reams of reams. That's funny. That's paper. Lots and lots of PDFs in my patient chart, for example, that spans 12 years, and there's no possible way that as I'm running lab tests on, not me running them, but my team running them on me every quarter, and that's just how we do it at Stark. There's no way to really plot a trajectory on a particular lab marker because there's just too much information. But large language models can create that chart instantaneously. So I'm fascinated by how information is going to be utilized by both the professionals and the consumers of medical services. I don't know. What do you think?
Look at the ideas of physicians these days. There was a time when there was a complete disconnect between anything natural, anything preventive at all. And today it's very common to see doctors writing handwritten prescriptions that go into vitamin and health food stores. Pick up your omega-3s, vitamin D, K2, magnesium. And I think this has been amazing as well. There's so many wonderful things that are coming in the way of the actual health and the availability of knowledge and information, and also timing of things, making things easier and helping people to be able to get decisions they need faster and even more effectively. So I'm in agreement with you 100%.
Yeah, and it's an exciting time. I'm looking forward to. We're starting to see the emergence of things like continuous glucometers that are non-invasive, which is essentially it's like a wearable that you only use for a couple of weeks, like a regular glucometer, but it picks up information that through your body temperature and other means that indicates how you're actually performing from a blood sugar standpoint. I can't imagine what that's going to look like in the future, where people are wearing devices that present hormones, sex hormones, for example, or any other marker, lipids in real time. I don't know what that means for medicine, but I think it's going to be really an exciting time because people will learn so much about what their epigenetics are doing to their genetics. They're going to see that this burger that they ate, what it did in terms of the cascade effect, not just on blood glucose, but on a variety of other markers, or how their uncontrollable stress over time is charted on or correlated to things like blood sugar and sex hormones and lipids and everything else that we have theories around, but we can't really run tests on people every day, all day long, but we're going to be able to. I think that the future of medicine is really, I think the future of medicine is here. It's kind of strange to say that.
It's true, though.
Yeah, our ability to understand more about the human body is at the bottom of the J curve and about to just shoot through the ceiling. And any thoughts about how that's going to affect humanity? You're an optimist. I can see it in your eyes.
Yes and no. But for the most part, it's funny. But for the most part, most people today, a lot of people are audio, which means they like to listen to things because it allows them to get an idea, to formulate an opinion. And I think that's why things like, Apple Podcast and Spotify, where people can listen anywhere they go, that gives them information and they can create an opinion very, very quickly. But, when they're watching videos or they're actually seeing things happening and maybe have the availability of this kind of science and technology moving forward where they can see things happening and see the results of something, per your opinion, eat something and see how your body reacts,
Hmm.
and see how your body's actually doing. I think that is going to be absolutely just groundbreaking. I think it's going to be phenomenal because we're not getting like an idea. We're not, putting ourselves into like a PubMed study of this is what happened to this group of people. It's going to be about you individually, what's going on with you. I mean, I see places where like you're walking through the airport, going through TSA, and you walk through TSA and you come out the other side and they give you a readout of everything from your hormones to your blood pressure to your blood sugar and everything you could possibly think of. I see that technology coming, where you have an idea and almost like an exact science of where you are at that point in time. And I think that's where they want to go. And I think that I think it's reachable and achievable and attainable. I hope we get to see it, in its full run.
Dang, you're making me nervous now. We need to have that device at Stark. And all the Stark locations, that little thing you walk through, you stand in for 5 seconds and you come out the other end and we know everything about you. That would be fantastic. We know what you did
I
last
see
night.
it coming.
We know what
I
you
really
drank a bunch
do.
of wine. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's really exciting. There's not going to be a lot of mystery left. I wonder what that's going to do to human nature, because there's so much, I don't know, like excitement about not knowing what's going to happen next, or we don't really know everything about this particular thing. And a lot of that goes away. What happens to us?
Think of it this way. Many people know they're doing the wrong thing. They know they're eating the wrong foods. They know they're not being active. They know they're not decompressing. They know they're not managing their stress. They know they're not sleeping well. So they know all of this, but they're not seeing anything concrete that's actually showing what is happening or what may happen. So their motivational factor is like, yeah, I know better. I know I need to. I need to do this. Maybe this will actually be the initial push that lets people know that they really kind of need to do something. I mean, I'm hoping it's motivating, not debilitating.
I think the reason a lot of people do what they do and believe that they're not doing what's good for their health is because they don't truly believe it applies to them. They don't truly believe it matters so much to them. And they don't think that they can stick with it for a long enough period of time. And what we're talking about kind of removes that mysterious component, because what they do in real time is exhibited. And that means if there's a way to measure the effect of, let's say, a strength training session, and they see this little tiny micro change in their body that's measured somehow, now that's magically, but in the future it won't be, that can lead to transformational change within humanity. Because if you're able to actually see what happened to your body in a measurable way from a strength training session, or you do zone 2 cardio for 45 minutes and you actually see the micro changes in the structure of your heart. I don't know. I think that I have my own set of eyes, my own viewpoint. It would change me. I don't know. What would it do to you?
Do you remember when you used to go to the doctor to get your blood sugar checked? You knew you had an appointment coming up in 2 weeks. So people would eat really great. They would eat all kinds of protein and greens, no sugar, no carbs. They'd go to the doctor. The doctor would test their sugar, and then they would pat them on the head and they'd say, "Oh, you're doing great." And then all of a sudden, we have an A1C check. And so, where it gives you a 90-day kind of look at things. So you're like, I can't cheat anymore. I mean, they know what's happening. I can't say I haven't been doing the right thing because they can tell. So I think that there's not going to be any hiding here. And it may be taking away maybe the fantasy in your head. But, I'd rather have the realism. Pull the Band-Aid off, let me know how I'm doing, and maybe it'll motivate me to be able to do the right thing.
That's a great example, and it has clearly not had any behavioral impact. It's not like we have fewer diabetics today as a result of that particular lab being put into practice. It's a common lab that's run, and so it is a look into the past. It is a report card that's really clear, and there's no behavioral change. So I don't know. I'm fascinated by the psychology of change. My entire world is built around that, and I'm fascinated because I haven't figured it out. I I don't I don't know how to inspire, motivate, push, lead. I really have a disconnect in why the consumer won't take action. Well, I have some theories. A theory is they don't believe that it's possible for them, and technology will probably erase some of that. And the second one is they don't believe that's who they actually are. That's a deep seated subconscious issue that they have, and they're not even recognizing that that's there. And as a result, when they're not thinking, they self sabotage. They go into the pantry and grab a box of cookies and find their way to the bottom. And by the time they are even aware that they did it, it's gone. The cookies are all gone. And that's an interesting one. I don't know how to. Again, I haven't figured that out. I would love to have solutions. If you've got some wisdom to pass along to me there, please go ahead and share because I need that. I need that solution.
I seriously think that we're in the New Year's resolution mode mentally across the country, meaning that every single year we start the year with the best of intentions. But in the back of our mind, we also know the history of being unsuccessful, not adhering, not sticking to, a little bit of flexibility turning into no flexibility. We know that probably within a week to 2 weeks, we're going to be right back to where we were. And we have this history, this unsuccessful history that is resonating in our mind. And I know people will tell me all the time, I've never been successful. I never stick to it. And I know I'm not going to, but I'm going to try to. And I'm going to have bells and whistles and balloons. And I'm going to tell everybody I'm doing it. Maybe if I make it open and tell everybody on Facebook or Instagram, look what I'm doing, they'll hold me accountable. No, we have to hold ourselves accountable. And I don't know, maybe the same way that you do, I don't know how to work around that because it's an individual thing. It's your choice with your life and your health, what and how you do things. I want you to be healthy. I want you to make the changes that you've always wanted. I can't do it. I could be there to support you and give you all the knowledge I have, but how do we create the want to and the routine and the dedication to something that is only created by the individual and they have to actually want to make a change. It's kind of like if somebody is a smoker and his wife or his husband or her husband or whatever, your significant other hates that you smoke and they complain about it all the time. They can't make you quit. I mean, you've got to quit on your own. And sometimes you just irritate them so much they'll smoke even more. But that's a personal choice. They get to do that. It's between them and their body. So I don't know how to motivate that kind of thing. And I've tried and I've been unsuccessful.
Yeah, I mean, certainly change needs to come from within the individual. It's such an interesting part of my world because people pay us so much money to do what to accomplish what they want to accomplish, and then make decisions that fly in the face of that. It's not a large percentage, but as we've become more sophisticated, I'm talking about humanity, and within Stark, the testing more sophisticated and understanding more about the human body and the plans have adapted. Over time, the percentage of success that we achieve has gotten greater and greater, but there's still that group of people that desperately need to change, that are on the precipice of horrific health implications, that are surrounded by loved ones that want to see them accomplish these things. They have all the motivating factors in place. They even have the wealth to remove a lot of the stresses that most humans have. And they still won't modify their behavior, even though they say they want to. It's fascinating psychology, and someday, maybe maybe never, I'll get to the bottom of it. But yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. At Stark, this is the diamond. This is the gem of what's available for people out there. Somebody comes to you. They're not in good health. So they know what they need to do. They go through all the testing. They're getting their blood work done. They're getting all the draws and everything. So you go over with them of what's happening and what's going on and where they are at this moment in time. So then they exercise, they make the changes in the diet, they come back, they do the blood work again on the next sessions, and they see that there's a change. Is it motivating to everybody that they're doing well and oh my goodness, I can't wait to see what else I can do? Or for some people, is it not motivating seeing the change? I'm curious.
I think that when you see changes that that are not visible in your
Mm-hmm.
body, like in the mirror, but they're on paper, you see changes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is motivating. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's why over time we've
Okay,
gotten more and
great.
more sophisticated because, you cast a wide net and you find 50 potential opportunities for improvement, and we need to pick like two or three in a short period of time. And then we retest and we see that those two or three markers have improved. That's motivating. Like they start to believe that they have the capacity for change. But still, some just don't move the needle in the most important areas of their lives. I mean, I guess this is really so basic. Like, have you ever tried to quit eating sugar, for example?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And how successful have you been?
I'd say when I was younger, not at all. As I've gotten older, much more effective. And today, I have virtually none in my diet.
Oh, that's amazing. So I generally sugar is one of the big ones. Alcohol would be its little brother, right?
But I mean, I was younger. I never, even though I was in the industry, for a long time. It took me a long time. I had a terrible sweet tooth. And then I got to the point where it just wasn't that important for me because I started eating more fruit and kind of getting that satisfaction from something different. And now that I'm older, I mean, I eat mostly protein and greens and, healthier carbohydrates. I don't do sugar, I don't do white sugar, I don't do any of that kind of stuff at all. I don't miss it. But was this an easy thing? Absolutely not. This took a long time for me to get here. I wish I had arrived here a lot sooner, but I'm also in the same breath, I'm really happy that I was able to get here at all.
Yeah, I think most people never really get there. But then again, I think most don't really understand the health related implications of it. Like how does it affect your cardiovascular system, for example? We certainly know how it affects body composition, hormones like insulin. Most people understand all those things, but maybe just superfluously. They don't really understand how deep the problem is, and therefore maybe aren't motivated enough. But I understand, and I have to make sure that like an addict, that things are not easily accessible. Like I don't have a lot of ice cream in the house. I don't have a lot of I don't eat gluten at all, but I don't have a lot of gluten-free cookies, which by the way typically have more sugar than regular cookies. Or the things that I would really love to binge on. I have to. Here's a tip for the listeners. Don't make it easy to access these things. Everybody knows that those cookies aren't good for you. That they're nutrient empty, and as a result, you're going to want to eat much more of them so that your body can get what it needs. And then sugar in and of itself is addictive. So make it hard. And for me, I have to walk somewhere or get in my car and drive somewhere and then park, go into the grocery store or wherever I want to get such thing to fill my intense physical need. And but my point is, it's not easy. And so one of the things that we ask people to do at the beginning stages with us is clear out the pantry and make it harder to access them. Because most of the time, when you're the weakest and you're at the end of the day, you're tired from work and you've had some stressful times of the day and you're just fully exhausted. And that's the point in time when you have the least amount of discipline. Like me, I've got a lot of discipline, but it expires at like 7. It just goes away. It falls off the cliff. And you're also tired though. And so am I going to finish dinner and I have like a sugar craving at 8:30 at night and actually drive somewhere? Nah, I'm too tired. And so I kind of give up on it. And then you string a bunch of those days in a row, and then you have less of an attraction to it, like that's where you are, it sounds like. You haven't had a lot of it in a very long time. And so you sort of forget and you minimize that addictive quality of sugar because you haven't had it for a while. But that's the way to do it. You just have to make it harder. And a lot of particularly young parents talk to me about this. Well, what do I do? I shouldn't be eating these things, but my kids love Pop-Tarts or whatever. I'm like, Pop-Tarts aren't good for your kids either. You think that because they're young, it's okay that they eat those things? Like, get those things out of the house for everyone's benefit.
I learned a long time ago that when people use the word comfort zone, they say, well, I go to my comfort zone because, it's something that makes me feel good. Comfort zones are basically a place you go when you can get away with things. And it's basically a comfort zone is familiar, it's comfortable, but it's also like that dent in the couch that your butt fits in and you got your arm on the remote and it just is a perfect fit. And it doesn't mean that it's good for you. It never means that it's healthy, but that's where we do a lot of the things that we do because they're routine, they're comfortable. You know, it's the time of the day. You don't want to go to the store. You had a rough day. You just want to kind of settle down and decompress. And food has been glamorized in many different ways today. We don't eat to go out into the farm and work in the fields and just for sustenance. Today, food is a comfort. We use it for happiness. We use it for drowning our sorrows. We celebrate. We grieve. We fill empty voids in our life. So that's kind of a negative. And you know, the food companies have learned how to make absolutely repulsive, disgusting food taste absolutely incredible. So we love it and we crave it and we gravitate toward it. And we're all guilty. It's just if we could do it less and, you know, interject healthier things into there. And to your point, which I think is amazing, don't make it easy. I mean, don't have it in there and just say you're not going to do it, because guess what? You're going to do it if it's there and it's easy and if you can reach it, it's going to be used up more effectively.
Yeah, you're just going to give up. Speaking of processed foods, let's talk about food scientists a little bit. Do you think there should be some additional governmental regulations around that in the U.S.?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we know the things that need to be focused on. And I think we need to start reverting back to real food because the average person doesn't eat real food. The processing of the foods is incredible. You know, I have a gentleman, and I went to hear him many years ago, and he said years back, shop the perimeter of your grocery store. Start with the fruits and vegetables, go to the back wall where the protein is, hit the dairy and the bakery, and then get your food and get out the door. He goes, but no, we shop the middle of the store where all the easy made, quick made, add water to constitute it, throw it in the microwave, add a cup of water, a stick of butter, and they're all on the end caps. It's all convenient. Everybody's hungry, you know, shopping, and they're filling their cart with all this stuff with virtually no nutritional value. And they're never hitting the walls. They're not getting good protein. They're not getting fruits. They're not getting vegetables. So the things that they are consuming, I think they should have to go under the microscope. And I think that there's things that should be taken off the market and not made accessible, because if they're accessible, we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm. What sort of things do you think should be made inaccessible, and what do you think should be accessible because we're free?
I think if you can't pronounce it on the label, it shouldn't be in there. I think you should stay away from things that are hydrogenated oils. I think we need to get completely away from trans fats, 100%. I think we need to make sure that we're getting away from any artificial dyes or colors of any kind. And there's 150 different ways of saying sugar on a label. Under everything else, I think we need, if we're going to be doing something, we need to get rid of, you know, the things that are on there. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember when this was a long time ago, they told us that fat was bad for everybody. And the entire country stopped eating fat.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this bakery company called SnackWells came out. And they were these bakery goods that you could eat because they had no fat. They were loaded with sugar, and they were good tasting, and everybody was like, there's no fat. And these trucks were coming to grocery stores, and people were standing outside when they were unloading and filling their shopping carts. I saw this. It was crazy with all of these things, and I was just like, what are you doing? And like, there's no fat. You can eat all you want. So 2 years, 3 years later, the entire country is even more obese. And then they start saying, well, maybe fats and oils could be good for us. I think we need more unsaturated, good, healthy oils. I think we need more protein. I think the whole world needs to adopt something like a Mediterranean diet where you're not eating inflammatory foods. Because we have so many diseases, you're seeing them, so many health conditions, and a lot of it is inflammatory food driven. That we could be the source of the remedy if we would make the choice. But I think naiveness, maybe not ready for change, to your point, not thinking that it is going to ever affect them. Maybe it's not a category that they need to be worried about. I don't know. There's so much to do out there, and I just wish we could wave a magic wand and make people have a different mindset for their own health and well-being.
We are starting to see shifts in consumer behavior, at least in large metropolitan areas like here in Los Angeles, where very specific grocery stores and restaurants are starting to pop up and be highly successful. For example, putting on a menu that there are no seed oils in a restaurant in Los Angeles is a new thing. I haven't seen it anywhere else. I'm assuming you find it in New York, in Miami, any major metropolitan area, but then it'll kind of work its way across the country. We're also seeing on the menu things like grass-fed beef and free-range chicken and wild game. And there's definitely a shift. I should research this. I'm guessing that there's a lot more consumption of higher quality protein sources than ever in the recent past, like free range chicken and grass fed beef and wild game. I'm assuming that's the case. I don't know that for sure, but it's just seems to be the consumers seem to have a heightened awareness of how their diets should be today that are probably much more accurate than ever I can remember, up until the point when diets actually became a thing, which is probably the 50s or the 60s. Or you remember, what's his name? Jack LaLanne. He used to talk about how if it comes in a box, don't eat it. And that was I think that was the 50s, wasn't it?
50s,
black and white TV
60s?
show, 50s
Yes.
and 60s, yeah. And that was a new concept, and that was right on the heels of processed foods becoming a thing ever in the history of mankind. Before then, there were no diets. Were there? I don't think so. I think people just ate real food.
No. Soon after that, you started seeing the high protein, low carb, which I'm a big advocate of. But I'll never forget, I was 20 years old and getting flown to New York and sitting in Dr. Atkins' house. He was one of my mentors.
Really?
Yeah, and he was talking
wow.
about, he was giving a message. Now, the message was clear. You could have protein. You could eat until you're full. You should never overeat, but you need lots and lots of green vegetables. You have to have your fiber, because the problem with a high protein, low diet is constipation. You need your B vitamins. You need to hydrate your body. But here we are as a nation. Oh my goodness, I can eat all I want. People are pulling up a chair to a cow and they're eating as much as they can, slabs and slabs of ribs. It's okay, I can have this. And of course, calories are still calories are still calories.
Yeah.
But the thing is, people were not following it. They were making a Cliff Note version for themselves. So it got to be unhealthy because
Yeah.
people were eating so much of the wrong stuff. So sometimes even when we have the right information, we're going to tailor it to the way that works the best for us. And that may not always be healthy, but bottom line, you got to want to make a change. You got to want to make a difference, or you have to be scared. Fear is one of the biggest motivators that are out there. A stroke, a heart attack, a bad blood workup, terrible diagnostic, pain, discomfort, sickness. Those are things that for many people can turn the table and actually switch that part of the brain over to, okay, I know it's time now. Now I'm ready. I'm falling off the cliff. It's time to hold on and do something different. I hate it that it is a motivator, but it is.
Yeah, that's just sort of how we're wired, and I would love to unwire people and have them think a little bit differently, because I want to share with humanity what it feels like to be in a state of optimal health. Most people have never experienced, and this is part of the challenge of change and leading people in that direction, that they really don't know what it is that they're seeking, because they have no reference point. Most people have never been there, and if they have, like me, before my health journey, the last time I felt really optimal, which was a sense of not even feeling my body, and just doing what I needed to do without the sense of having a body, was like 10. And as an adult, you look back and you're like, yeah, but I was 10. And so I can't get back there. And it's a big barrier to individuals making progress. I'm wondering, let's just shift gears a little bit, because getting people to take pills is not difficult. I wonder what you think about, or what you're most excited about related to nutraceuticals. Like, what's happening, what's on the horizon, what potential solutions are out there that are much more natural than pharmaceuticals, and therefore, there are fewer negative side effects and only the positives. What's going on?
Yeah, I got to tell you, it's interesting. When I was first starting, out like 1980, when I first started, there wasn't a lot of information. I was doing my radio show back then for a long time, 42
like on the
years,
actual
long
radio.
time. On the radio, 1980 is when I started. And it was amazing because the only information I could get was from a couple authors in our industry and from research books at the library that were very jaded and leaned toward only the medical side. So, it was really hard to find information to do a radio show every day, so that was a lot. So what I've learned is that way back then, even the health food stores that were just starting out, a lot of the supplements that we were using were synthetic. There wasn't a lot of natural. There was no blended combinations. We didn't have the availability of walking into a health food store like today and say, can I have something for my eyes, for my joints, for cholesterol, for my skin, for my gut? We never talked about digestion. We never really talked about probiotics. They were called acidophilus, and they were actually recommended way back then to take it for 7 days after an antibiotic and then put it in the refrigerator and use it only again when you need it. We couldn't talk about vitamin D. It was on the bottom shelf because it was considered synthetic and dangerous to take it with a multiple vitamin. So here we are today, 4.5 decades later, with lots of information, tons of published studies, and I see the amazing nutrients that are coming out today, like plant-based multiple vitamins, which are amazing. They not only give you a great quality, but they're much more digestible for most people. We have full digestion categories now, digestive enzymes, both plant-based and animal-based, ox bile and pancreatin and things like that. The probiotic industry has blossomed. We now have shelf-stable probiotics. I mean, who knew? I never would have recommended a probiotic if it wasn't coming from the refrigerator. But, we need them today because of those terrible diets that we've been talking about. Greens have really come out. I think greens are amazing for not replacing vegetables and fruits, but maybe enhancing a low intake of them, or even enhancing for somebody like a vegetarian or a vegan that are now actually taking greens powders to elevate themselves even better nutritionally. I think that we have to increase our antioxidants. I think that we're seeing amazing things. Who would have thought that collagen could be something so important for not just the skin, but for the joint matrix and for the gut lining and for the microbiome of the gut, and using collagen along with a probiotic, for digestive disorders. And who would have ever thought that a gastroenterologist would be writing a handwritten prescription for a digestive enzyme, a probiotic, and some collagen? I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Today's health food stores, it's like a candy store. You get to walk in and ask for something, and all the work is done for you. You just have to utilize what's available. Where when we started, we had to create something, do the research, find out if something was even available, and then try to figure out how much of it to use. So it's a different world. I like where we are in that aspect, because I think we have the availability, but I think everybody should take a plant-based multiple vitamin. I think everyone should take magnesium because we're low, and vitamin D. I think everybody over the age of 20 should be using a digestive enzyme and a probiotic. And the reason I do is because it used to be 60. We never talked about the gut until people were over 60. Now I've got people in their 20s that are popping Prilosec and proton pump inhibitors like crazy and covering up their problem, thinking they're fixing something, but all they're doing is putting a blanket over a fire. They're not making any life changes. They're just making the annoying symptoms go away. So those are things that I think everybody should be looking at. And I think we need to keep looking at food, the quality of the food. I was in the industry when organic launched. That's how far back I go. Organic, it was the thing. No pesticides, no chemicals, and if you took a bite of an organic fruit, it tasted so much better. Now here we are, once again, 4.5 decades later. Most of the organic fields out there are not rotated. They're not nourished. They're kind of barren in many areas. Crops have been not, used correctly. They still don't have pesticides. They still don't have chemicals. What they still are expensive, and there's still an available way of going. But the thing is, the value nutritionally has changed, where you're not getting something that's that much more nutritionally sound for you. You're just really today not getting the chemicals. So now the next thing is regenerative. That's where we are now. I mean, that's the mission that I'm on, is regenerative agriculture, because it's not just about the crop. It's about the soil. Because we're in a mess with our soil on this planet, and we need to start changing our plant and our soil microbiome and getting a healthier soil so that we get healthier crops that actually bring nutrition to the foods that we're growing.
I'd like to debate this one issue with you a little bit. And I'm not the expert, but you mentioned multivitamin. A lot of consumers think that they should use a multivitamin, and a lot of practitioners suggest that they do. The team at Stark never prescribes a multivitamin. They tend to be highly targeted individual vitamins that have a larger volume of a particular vitamin. What do you think about that? And And would you still, if you were working within the Stark ecosystem, would you still, put your fist down and say, take the multivitamin?
No, because you have something that the average person doesn't have. The average person, I will recommend a multiple vitamin because I know that there's probably so many things going on. I'd rather give them a little bit of everything just so I know they're covering the gaps and
I
the
see.
cracks and the crevices. What you have is like the dream. It's amazing. You get to look inside and say, low here, too much of that, low here, low here. Let's fill the voids. And we don't need to be taking something that brings you don't need that. I mean, that is the ideal perfection way of retaining and achieving great health where the average person doesn't. So in this situation, no, I would never recommend a
Makes a
multiple
lot of
vitamin.
sense.
I would recommend what the test. Oh my God, it's just so incredible. But the average person, if they're not going through something like that, they have to guess.
That makes a lot of sense. But here, there's an economic
That's not a
question
debate.
here.
I love what you're doing.
No, I appreciate that. I was just curious. The fact of the matter, though, is the cost of running the test is probably less expensive than buying a multivitamin over many months. And so there's so much information there. It seems like people should just get a micronutrient panel done and spend $150 and end up buying what they actually need and fill the gaps in their nutrients, which, they'll feel. They'll be able to think more clearly, have more energy, everything else that comes along with greater health. Yeah.
I am
Just my
100% on board with that. And I think that makes absolute sense. It's just the hardest part is getting people to understand what's available to them. And this is amazing that this is available to them. And you're in a place where a lot more people are a lot more concerned with either their outer health and beauty as well as sometimes their in health and beauty. And I think that's part of LA. But that's kind of important. But people are more health conscious there. A lot of things start, a lot of trends and a lot of motivation and results and things start on the coast area and then kind of filter across the country. But that makes better sense. That's like taking that microscope and looking in to see exactly what's going on so that you can better serve the deficiencies and the needs of the body.
Yeah. Well, I certainly agree, of course. I'm responsible for creating the ecosystem. Jeffrey, it's so great to hang out with you. I love your passion. And I mean, you bring a lot to the world with all of your wisdom and experience and decades of knowledge. How can people find you if they want to seek you out?
Easiest way is go to my webpage. It's drjeffreyburke.com. It's Jeffrey, Jeffrey, Burke.com. You can leave me messages. You can send me questions as well. Everybody does. You can also tap on my Honest Health logo and go to Spotify and listen to my podcast. You can also tap on the YouTube logo and go to YouTube channel and make sure that you're watching the videos. I'm very blessed. I've had you on recently. Ours just launched, and it was really good. And I have great guests. I have the best minds in the industry and even outside the industry, because I think it's important for us to have a place to have a honest platform for information that gives people a reality check, which I think is important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. For our guests who are listening, you can find out more about Stark at stark.health. That's stark.health.